Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Craig Malkin. I'm a clinical psychologist and lecturer for Harvard Medical School. I'm also the author of Rethinking Narcissism, which is devoted to helping you understand and cope with narcissism in all its forms in all your relationships. I get asked one question over and over again in messages, in interviews, in people who are just reaching out to me through text or through my messaging system on my Facebook page. And that is, what does narcissism look like? The answer depends on the kind of narcissism. You first of all have to be aware that narcissism isn't all one thing. There's a core of it, and you can think of that as I talk about it in Rethinking Narcissism as the drive to feel exceptional, special, or unique. There are decades and decades of studies that show that that really is the core of what narcissism is. It's this drive to stand out from the other 7 billion people on the planet in some way. The reason it's important to understand the different types is that if we get too hung up on a caricature of what narcissism is, then we miss signs of difficulty that have nothing to do with, say, vanity or greed, because I'll wager that if anybody out there who's listening to me kind of thinks of an idea of what narcissists are or what narcissism is, they think of a vain, preening, primping, boastful braggart, somebody who might be on reality TV. The problem with that is it really is a caricature, and we miss all kinds of information by getting too hung up on it. You really want to think of most common form of narcissism, or really the most well-known, I should say, as overt or grandiose or extroverted. Extroverted because these are the loud, brash, outgoing types. And they agree on self-report measures with statements like, everybody laughs at my jokes, I like to look at myself in the mirror. You can hear that there's a lot of focus on image and feeling good about how one looks in the world. So this sense of the drive to feel special is all organized around feeling good, feeling better than other people, in fact. But there's another kind of narcissism. The second kind of narcissism, it goes by the name of hypersensitive, introverted, or covert. The person who first introduced the idea of covert narcissism is a psychologist and researcher named Paul Wink, whom I believe is still alive. And what he discovered as he was measuring people with this trait, this way of feeling special, is that they weren't any less arrogant or argumentative than, say, the more loud, outgoing types. But what they did have in common is that they had grandiosity on the inside. It was hidden, and it was sort of cast through a negative lens. These are people who felt special by virtue of the fact that their pain was greater than anyone else's, or they're the most misunderstood person on the planet. They agree with statements like, I'm more temperamentally sensitive than most people, and most people don't understand my problems. So as opposed to having this more inflated positive sense of self, they tend to be more anxious, shy, withdrawn. The covert means the grandiosity is on the inside and the vulnerability is on the outside. The overt of more extroverted types means that the grandiosity is on the outside and the vulnerability is on the inside. It's hidden. So those are the first two types. The third way of feeling special, you may or may not have heard of. I write about it in Rethinking Narcissism, but it has a lot to do with, again, another way to feel special, which is these are people who feel special because they believe themselves to be more helpful than any of the other 7 billion people on the planet. And they agree with statements like, I'm the most helpful person I know. And one day the world will know me for the good deeds I've done, or I'll be famous for it. They agree with statements like that. That is communal narcissism. And you can see, again, it really has nothing to do with necessarily being famous or being more attractive than other people. So if you think about those three types and these three different ways of feeling special, you can see it's going to look very different depending on how the person is expressing it. What is in common across these three is that the more driven someone feels to feel exceptional compared to the other people around them, the more they will exploit, the more entitled they will be, and the more empathy impaired they will be. Kind of think that this is where the metaphor I use in Rethinking Narcissism comes in handy, because if you think of extreme narcissism, or when somebody is high enough in traits to be disordered in narcissism, say narcissistic personality disorder, as an addiction to feeling special, then it becomes clear that people will lie, steal, cheat, do whatever it takes to feel that way, no matter the cost to those around them. And that is true as people become more and more extreme in these traits. And the reason I think it's so important to keep that in mind is if you're thinking about yourself, because these videos are also people who struggle with narcissism. I see them in my practice. I see a number of people with narcissistic personality disorder who actually do want to work on themselves and do want to make changes. That's not to say that if you're a partner or a friend, that it's somehow on you to understand that or figure that out. That's really for them to work on themselves. If they are aware of when these traits become problematic, then they're more likely to be able to seek out help. So I hope this helps with people who struggle with narcissism in themselves. But I also, of course, want to help people who are hurt because they have extremely narcissistic friends and partners. And I think this rethink makes it a lot clearer about when that's happening. So I hope you found that helpful. If you like it, give it a big thumbs up, and ring the bell so that you can get notifications when new videos like this, when I produce them. I'm going to be trying to do more. I've got help doing them now, which is going to make it a whole lot easier for me. And I look forward to sharing with you more. Take care.